turn my.
We're just going to give it a moment to allow people to come in from the waiting room. More minutes.
Oh, you don't want to. You want to be in the.
Make sure you.
Yeah, I want to.
Can everyone just make sure they're muted as they enter? All right, let's get started. Good afternoon. This is a hearing before the Boston Cannabis Board, the BCB. Today is September 14th, 2022. Today's hearing is being conducted pursuant to certain temporary amendments to the open meeting law. This is what allows us to meet virtually. This hearing is being recorded and it will be posted to the City of Boston's website. Before I review some procedural matters, I will introduce Chairwoman Kathleen.
Thank you, Jasmine. My name is Kathleen Joyce. I'm chair of the Boston Cannabis Board, and today I'm joined by two of my fellow commissioners, Commissioner John Smith and Commissioner Lisa Holmes.
Thank you, Chairwoman Joyce. My name is Jasmine Nguyen, and I am the Boston Cannabis Board Manager. We are also joined by Allison Quinn, who is the project manager for the BCB. Because we only have a three-member board this month, applicants were given the option to proceed with today's hearing, in which all three board members would have to agree in order for a license to be granted, or defer until next month's October hearing, which is October 12th. Item 2, Sweet and Sour, has decided to proceed with today's hearing, and item 3, Vinyl Roots, has decided to defer until October. So we will only be hearing, as far as new applications, Sweet and Sour, and Vinyl Roots will be heard at the October date. I will begin by reading each item into the record. I will then ask who is present on behalf of each proposal before us. The first item on the agenda is an amendment to an already approved establishment, so they will have 5 minutes to present to the BCB. And then we will move forward with the new license application, in which they will have 10 minutes to present to the BCB, followed by questions from the board members. We will then take public testimony, beginning with elected officials or their representatives, followed by the general public. If you wish to testify, please sign up via the link that will be put in the chat. If you have already signed up, you do not have to do it again. Additionally, you may use the chat function to request to testify as well. Please wait until the matter in which you would like to be called to testify against is called. Do not use the chat to give testimony. It will not be considered. Please state your full name, address, and affiliation, if any. Testimony will be limited to 2 minutes, at which time you'll be muted. Additional testimony may be submitted in writing to cannabisboard@boston.gov. The record will be kept open until Tuesday, September 20th at 5 p.m. The BCB does not give any more weight to spoken testimony than it does to written testimony. So we will begin with the first item, which is Mayflower Medicinals, Inc. The license premise is 230 Harvard Avenue, Alston. The license type is a co-located medical and recreational retail cannabis dispensary. The request is for a change of officers and directors. No changes are proposed to the impact of the current direct or indirect ownership of Mayflower at any level or the ultimate controlling parties. Who is present on behalf of the licensee?
Hi, my name is David Yulian. I'm here on behalf of Mayflower Medicinals.
Okay, so you will have 5 minutes to present. You may share your screen and begin.
Okay. Please let me know if you can see this.
Yep, perfect.
Okay, great. So again, my name is David Yulian. I'm an attorney at Vicente Cedarburg. I'm here on behalf of Mayflower Medicinals. I'm also joined by Andrew Plant and Aaron McCarthy, also from Ianthus, which is the parent company of Mayflower. So we are here today to seek approval with respect to a retail cannabis establishment located at 230 Harvard Avenue in Alston. Just a little bit of background about Mayflower. It is a cannabis company that is licensed and permitted by the Cannabis Control Commission and the City of Boston for a co-located medical and adult use cannabis establishment at 230 Harvard Avenue in Alston. It is a vertically integrated company. It has an operational cultivation and manufacturing facility in Holliston, as well as operational retailers in Worcester and Lowell. Since it's opened its doors for medical patients in July 18th, it's prioritized safety and compliance in full cooperation with all state and local authorities and regulations, and had no incidents or losses or diversion. It was issued the cannabis establishment license from the BCB on August 31st, 2022, and intends to commence adult use retail operations later next week, September 19th, 2022. So the proposed change is a result of John Henderson resigning as the director and officer of Mayflower just a couple of weeks ago in July. John Henderson no longer has any control over or affiliation with Mayflower. So the two individuals who are seeking to replace John Henderson are Robert Galvin, who is proposed to be the sole director on the board of directors of Mayflower. He currently is the interim CEO and chief operating officer of Ianthus Capital Holdings, which is the ultimate parent company of Mayflower. And he was already been disclosed to and approved by the commission as a person with direct or indirect control last year. The other individual is Andrew Plants. He will be replacing John Henderson as the chief executive officer, president, treasurer, and secretary of Mayflower. Currently serves as the Senior Director of Compliance and Risk Management for Ianthus. He has served in various security and compliance roles for Mayflower over the past couple of years since 2017. And again, he also has been approved by the commission as a person with direct or indirect control recently in August of 2022. And as Jasmine mentioned, these changes that are proposed do not impact any direct or indirect ownership of Mayflower at any level or the ultimate controlling party. So we are simply seeking the board's approval for these two individuals to serve as a director and the various officer positions for Mayflower. So that is basically all we have here. It's pretty straightforward, but we're happy to try to answer any questions that the board may have.
Thank you. We'll begin with questions from the board members. Chairwoman Joyce, do you have any questions?
I just want to confirm that there'll be no operational changes at this location.
Correct, right. No operational changes as a result of this. It's just that new individuals are serving as the director on the board and the chief, the executive officer positions.
Okay, thank you. I don't have any other questions.
Commissioner Holmes?
Are we allowed to know why Mr. Henderson resigned?
So it was a mutual separation, as I understand it, very amicable, and just a decision to sort of part ways. And John will be moving on, but it still has a good relationship with the company.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Smith?
Thanks, Jasmine. No questions.
Okay. Is there anyone here to speak in support or opposition of this proposal? Seeing no one, the board will take this matter under advisement.
Right, thank you very much.
You're welcome. The next matter we have, the applicant is Sweet and Sour LLC. The proposed license premise is 565 Columbus Avenue, South End. The license type is a retail recreational cannabis dispensary license. The proposed hours of operation are 10 a.m. to 9 p.m. 7 days a week. This is the equity applicant. The applicant filed their application February 7th, 2022. They filed with Inspectional Services March 8th, 2022, and the community meeting was held on May 31st, 2022. Before we begin with the presentation, I will ask Aaliyah Forrest, who is the Director of Business Strategy from the Mayor's Office of Economic Opportunity and Inclusion, to speak to the equity certification.
Thank you, Jasmine. Good afternoon, everyone. Our office was able to certify Sweet and Sour LLC as an equity applicant through the documentation submitted by the applicant. Gabriel Vieira is the CEO of Sweet and Sour LLC and is the beneficial interest holder of 51% of the company, meeting the 51% ownership interest threshold set forth in the ordinance. Mr. Vieira meets the following criteria. He's a person who has resided in an area of disproportionate impact as defined by the Cannabis Control Commission for at least 5 of the past 10 years. Mr. Vieira provided a proof of residency certification from the Boston Elections Department establishing that he has resided in Dorchester from 2014 to at least 2021. Mr. Vieira also provided his Massachusetts driver's license confirming his home address. The geocoder address tool used by the CCC to determine areas of disproportionate impact confirms that the address provided by Mr. Vieira is located in an area of disproportionate impact in Suffolk County pursuant to CCC guidelines. Secondly, Mr. Vieira is a person who has been certified by the CCC as an economic empowerment or social equity applicant and has been a resident of Boston for at least one of the last 3 years. Mr. Vieira has been certified by the CCC as a social equity applicant in March 2020. As stated before, Mr. Vieira has provided documentation that establishes he has resided in Dorchester since at least 2014. Finally, Mr. Vieira self-identifies as Black African American, which satisfies the criteria of a person who is of Black African American, Hispanic, Latino, Asian, or Indigenous descent. Are there any questions about the certification? All right.
Thank
Thanks.
you, Leah. Who is present on behalf of the licensee?
I'm Gabe. I'm here along with Ellis, who will be speaking with me as well.
How's everybody doing today?
Well, thank you. Again, you will have 10 minutes to present. You may share your screen and begin.
Okay. Jasmine, can you see my screen clearly?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Gabriel Vieira. I'm here to present the Sweet and Sour Cannabis proposed dispensary at 565 Columbus Avenue with Ellis, one of my business partners. To quickly go over the ownership group, it's myself as a CEO, Ellis as the Chief Marketing Officer, and then Christian Nicholson as the COO. To quickly get into it, Sweet and Sour is located at 565 Columbus Avenue. As you can see, we're using the previous building, Harvard Eye Care. We are a social equity owned company, high-end cannabis company. The founders of this company are pioneers within the cannabis space. We were the first delivery operator to be approved by the BCB back in, I believe, December of 2021. As a company, as an organization, and as a people, we adhere to the highest standards of honesty, transparency, and respect towards our neighbors, our employees, and ourselves. According to data that we received from current delivery services operating in the area, South End is top four, or one of the top four largest of Boston neighborhoods that are consumers of cannabis. And then lastly, our dispensary is here for the sole purpose of serving the South End community. To get into the location, we do not have a buffer zone conflict. We meet all state requirements related to sitting in a conditional use zone. We're also located on the most commercialized block on Columbus Ave. No school, social service, or treatment centers are within 500 feet of our location. Our proximity to public transportation is below. We have 3 train lines and 8 bus lines that are nearest our location, with Mass Ave train station being the closest. It's actually a 2-minute walk from our location, which is great for both customers and employees. That is one way we're going to mitigate traffic, but of course, I'll get into that a little bit later. We also have on-site parking, not much of it, but Columbus Ave and Mass Ave are aligned with meter parking. And then lastly, according to the density map, which you'll see as I reference later on in this presentation, there is no doubt Boston South End is one of the most densely populated areas. And having said that, we believe our dispensary location will be very well suited for the area's needs, in particular when comparing the sheer volume of restaurants, liquor license holders, bars, and coffee shops. Cannabis would fit right in. So I'll turn it over to Alice to talk about the project history and context.
So the reason why we're here is because as a social equity company, we strive to create opportunities for people of color and communities that have been impacted by the war on drugs and marijuana prohibition. And there's also a disparity that needs to change within the cannabis industry. There's only 2% of owners in the cannabis industry are Black or African. And we're also committed to donating a 5-figure sum to the Last Prisoner Project. Another big reason why we chose the location is because it's in the vicinity of the Harriet Tubman House, which was torn down for luxury apartments, which was once a safe haven for Black and brown residents in the South End. So we chose this location because we want to recreate a safe haven and a place of opportunity for Black and brown residents in the South End, since what they once had is now destroyed. And like Gabriel also stated, the difference between our location and past proposals in the South End is that our location, when it comes to retail cannabis, is allowed at our location under conditional use. We're also located on the most commercialized block on Columbus Avenue. And after 2 years of research, we know that this is the most viable location for a cannabis dispensary in the heart of the South End. So those are the reasons why we chose the location and comparing our project history and the context.
Now to discuss the overview of community outreach. Since the inception of this proposal, we've had over 5 community meetings, one being April 19th, the second being April 21st, third being May 13th, and the last one, which was supposed to be May 26th, but due to the community concerns, we had postponed our community meeting from May 31st to June 21st, excuse me, to meet with them, understand their community concerns, and obviously rectify their community concerns. With that being said, our official community ONS outreach meeting was on the 21st of June. And then since that date, we have done 50 plus hours of community outreach, especially in the month of August, to receive 300 plus letters of support from individuals, residents, and local businesses in the area. In addition to that, I just want to show you guys the support map of individuals that have supported us to date. As I said, 300 plus letters of support have come from the community, specifically in only the South End community. 13 of those are local South End businesses. To be exact, about 200 plus of our direct abutters are located on the following streets: Columbus Ave, Mass Ave, Wellington Street, Claremont Park, West Springfield, Worcester Street, and you can kind of consider Tremont Street to be a direct abutter as well. But for this instance, I'll keep that out. For clarification, every address, every street name that I mentioned outside of Tremont Street is within 300 or 500 feet of our location, which anyone would consider to be a direct butter. And as I said, over 200 plus people of our direct butters are in support of our location. To move forward, as I said, we had plenty of community meetings, and based on that, we have community feedback that we received, and here's how we plan to rectify those. So the first concern that we heard were the hours of operations are too late. So of course, we modified our proposed hours of operations from 10 a.m. to 9 p.m. to conform with those surrounding retail businesses and restaurants. In most cases, we close earlier. Additionally, there was an issue with the rear loading area, and they said it was insufficient. So what we decided to do is we located loading and unloading zones, one that directly sits in front of our location and another one that's 250 feet away from our storefront. I'll reference that later on in the reference slides. And then in addition to that, frequency of the transportation was also a question. So what we decided to do is now we will be delivering product on every 2-week basis, and we will not be using an 18-wheeler, which was once assumed. We will be using a small van to deliver and unload and load product. Another issue that came about was the trash accumulation. That had been an issue in the neighborhood and apparently is ongoing. As Dunkin' Donuts does, we will implement an overnight trash pickup to relieve the neighborhood of excess garbage. And in addition to that, we are going to place tags on all of our products that leave our establishment so that we can easily tag our products and see if our consumers have left trash in the neighborhood. And if so, we are having a team of street cleaners, staff members on our team that on a weekly basis will be cleaning up streetscapes, parks, and areas within our abutted region. Secondly, there is an odor concern. How we address that is, as it's industry standard to use odor-proof containers. We're also installing odor-proof storage units to ensure that our neighbors do not smell the use of cannabis or just the storage of cannabis. And then to get into the mitigation of traffic, as I stated before, we have opened up a delivery company named ZipRun, where we have created our own proprietary order head technology, which will allow us to achieve shorter wait times, ultimately reducing traffic congestion in and around our location. We will maintain a 3-member on-site security team that will monitor flow of traffic. And then lastly, we are implementing a 2-strike policy rule that our essentially, if we find a consumer either double parking or participating in the use of cannabis in or around the neighborhood, the consumer will receive a warning. If they are caught for a second time, they will be banned from our establishment. And our security team will keep all tabs on incidents that will occur. And then lastly, I kind of touched upon the double parking concern, and that led us into the 2-strike policy. We'll ensure that is not a constant issue for ourselves and our neighbors.
2 minutes left.
Yep. Quickly to talk about security, our team has security measures, one being three team members on site. We have 24/7 security surveillance system. Secondly, when it comes to loitering in the community, we remind our consumers that cannabis must not be consumed at home and consumption in public is illegal. In addition to that, we have diversion parameters such as packaging will be tamper-proof and child-proof. And then during the buy process, IDs will be checked twice to ensure consumers under 21 plus are not allowed into our location. To quickly address the parking for our employees, 70% of our team members will be recruited from the South End community, so they are mostly within walking distance, and the other 25% will be encouraged to use public transportation, and they will receive subsidies to do so. We will have 6 employees at our location, not including 3 on-site security team members. Ellis, you can go ahead and talk about the Zipper Advantage.
Like Gabe stated earlier, we create our own tech platform which can mitigate traffic. We anticipate 70% of our orders will be pre-orders and 30% will be walk-ins. And due to our technology that we've created through our other company, Zipper, we'll be able to mitigate our traffic with our technology to ensure shorter wait times. When it comes to diversity and inclusion, we want to make sure that 100% of our employees are Boston residents. At least 50% of our employees come from minority background. 50% of our employees are women. 10% of our employees are veterans, and at least 10% also come from LGBTQ+ communities. And 5% of our employees will be people with disabilities, and at least 5% will be immigrants. And then if we go to the employment plan, we're going to ensure that 70% of our hires are South End residents. 100% of our resident hires are going to be from the city of Boston. And like I stated, 50% will be BIPOC hires, 50% will be women. And our starting salary for our location is $20, which is way above the $17.50 standard that's within the state of Massachusetts when it comes to cannabis hires throughout all levels. And also when it comes to our employment plan, we want to make sure that we ensure that Sweet and Sour will seek at least 75% of residents in the South End, like I stated. And throughout the year, Sweet and Sour will host at least 2 job fairs that explore partnership with the local South End community and organizations that will help employees and job seekers. And when it comes to our community commitments, we're here to ensure that we have 5-figure annual contributions to organizations within the South End that support minority communities throughout the city of Boston. We're going to prioritize hiring residents of the South End community. We're going to have mandatory community service days for employees, and we're going to continue to engage in open and honest communication with South End organizations and civic groups. And we're going to provide new revenue through our host of community agreement and engage and speak on the neighborhood policy.
That's actually time if you want to just wrap it up briefly.
Yeah, just to quickly touch on this, we had sent over an MOU to the president of the Claremont Neighborhood Association. This was as requested via our community meetings with the South End neighborhood. As Ellis stated, a lot of those same terms that Ellis spoke about in the community commitments will be as followed in the good neighborhood policy. And then if you don't mind, this would take 2 seconds. Here are some reference maps that I touched upon earlier, showing the density in the South End, showing the density of liquor licenses, coffee shops and restaurants in the South End over 10 plus for each category. And then lastly, I'll quickly reference the loading and unloading zones for our use. These 2 pictures show 250 feet away, and then the images below show the loading and unloading zone right outside our location. That would be all. Thank you all for hearing our presentation today, and we look forward to the questions.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Now we will move to questions and comments from the board members, beginning with Chairwoman Joyce.
Thank you, Jasmine. I do have a couple of questions. I wanted to start with the location. In your presentation, you stated that there is no buffer zone conflict, and we did a quick check, and you're exactly half a mile between a previously approved location. And I know as an equity applicant, you qualify for technical assistance through the city's program. So I just wanted to hear more, either from you or from Aaliyah, about the land survey that you're now seeking, who's doing it, how long it's going to take, and when we can expect to have the results of that land survey, which will give us a better, more exact distance between the other location.
Yeah, for sure. Aaliyah, if you wouldn't mind touching base on that, I don't know if you have the exact dates on when we expect to receive the information, but based on our previous conversation, that was expected to come within the following week, hopefully within the 1 week, how do I call it? The next week's approval, or next week,
The
excuse me,
voting
next week's
meeting.
voting meeting. Yeah, excuse me. Sorry about that.
So we met with our technical assistance provider, Fuss and O'Neill, that we work with typically on traffic studies and surveyor subcontracted surveyors for this type of work. I want to say maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago. And they said the soonest they could do, they could have a surveyor do the between the shops practice was, I think they said that they would be done by the next voting hearing, which is next week. But I will check in with them to see where they're at with it.
Okay, I'll tell you right now, I would be inclined to defer my vote until I have an opportunity to review that information. I think that's really important for the board to have to consider. So hopefully we get more than just the day before our voting meeting, especially in a dense neighborhood like this, and given the fact we just approved one. But putting that aside, I just wanted to go over other questions I had in your presentation. Can you explain to me how the pre-orders work? I know you have the technology for it. So if I decide to go online and pre-order something, does it give me a time certain to pick it up? Or is it, I can come in at any time, I just go to a certain line to pick it up?
No, so you're correct in your first statement. Essentially, if you're placing an order, you have some time slots to choose from. So essentially, if you want to order from, I guess, a 10 to 11 a.m. window, you can choose that time. Once that time has came about, you'll receive a text message 30 minutes prior to that, letting you know that your time windowing is coming in 30 minutes for you to pick up your order. 10 minutes prior to that window, that 10-11 window opening up, you will receive an email letting you know, or excuse me, a text message letting the consumer know that the order is now ready for pickup in 10 minutes. So essentially, it is all time-based. You're just not allowed to place a pickup order and come in and pick up that order. It is all based on being the most efficient dispensary operation set in the city of Boston, which is technology we use for our delivery service.
Okay. And I appreciated in your materials that you did go through the community concerns and evaluated each and every one of them and made adjustments to your proposal. In particular, were the hours of operations. What was your original plan for our hours of operation? I know now it's 9 p.m. close of the latest, but what was your original request?
Yeah, it was just 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. But based on the community feedback, we had thought it best, especially, this is a cannabis operation. We definitely want to fit in with the neighbors and make sure, we present a good neighborhood policy. As you'll probably see, most restaurants in that neighborhood close at 10. As I said, we want to close a little bit earlier in most cases, just to show good faith for our neighborhood.
Okay. And then also, based upon some of the community feedback, you adjusted your staffing model. You're going to have 3 staff people watching someone at the door, checking IDs, someone checking for double parking, and someone monitoring the parks or the general area. Are those
Correct.
3 employees part of the total 6 employees on a given shift?
No, it would be a totality of 9 in total employees on staff. So what we'll have is, we'll have 3 bud tenders. As this wasn't brought up in this meeting, but our expectation is we're going to have roughly, 200 to 250 people in and out of our doorway on any given day. And the reason why these numbers aren't outrageous as previous dispensaries we're seeing, which is 500 plus, is because, there's saturation coming to the Boston market. Inevitably, each dispensary is going to be fit to their community that they're with.
Oh, I lost him.
Audio.
Gabe, we can't hear you. We see your lips moving, but don't hear anything.
Gabe, is your audio unplugged or something?
I can answer any further questions you have.
Okay.
to deal with
And I think he did summarize that pretty well before we lost his audio. And Ellis, maybe my last question, and I'm sorry, I'm not sure if it's you or Gabe that's best. One of the slides said that your research indicated that this was the most viable location in the South End. What kind of research went into that?
So before we began Zip Run, which was our delivery service, we had initially wanted to be
Nancy.
we initially wanted to do a dispensary location. So due to the fact that I went to Boston Lions School, Gabe went to John D. O'Brien, and the other reasons we gave, really care about the South End community. I was a frequent visitor in the South End community. I have friends and family that lived there. So we wanted to make sure that we were able to give back to that community with a dispensary. So over the years, we've seen other dispensary proposals, one that was on 633 Tremont Street that was not able to go through. Also one that was also in a forbidden use place in the South End that was a little bit down the block from us. So when we came into this building, we seen that it was on the most commercialized block in the South End, meaning that the buildings right next to us are all commercialized buildings. Render Coffee, which is one of the most popular boutique coffee shops, is our next door neighbor. SRV's, which is one of the most popular restaurants in the entire city of Boston, and is always listed on the best restaurants in the city of Boston, is next to us. We have a Dunkin' Donuts that's up the block. We have laundromats. So our building has the least amount of direct impact on residents within the South End, because as we know, the South End is very much so congested, but on our block specifically, we're not directly affecting any residents, which is why we've been able to get a lot of letter of support from people within the community, because they're realizing that with all our strategies when it comes to traffic mitigation and all the other concerns, we've made sure to uphold those, and we're going to make sure we continue to do so.
Okay, thank you, Ellis. I don't have any other questions. I'll turn it over to my other fellow commissioners.
Thank you.
Commissioner Holmes, do you have any questions?
I do have a question, and maybe I read the proposal wrong. Does your entrance to your establishment, is it also the same entrance as the residential entrance?
No.
No, it's not. Oh, Ellis, you can go ahead if you want.
So no, just like Render Coffee, we have two separate entrances. We
Okay,
have an entrance into our condominium, which is the commercial property, and then
Okay.
a separate entrance for residents.
okay, so the way it's on your proposal, it looks like you guys share the entrance with the residences. Okay, so that you all have a separate dedicated door to your business.
Yes, 100%.
So
Okay,
what we
where are you? Oh, there you are, Gabe. Okay, go ahead. What were you gonna say?
what we share is the same stairway, but our doorways are different. So essentially, when you walk up our stairs, you'll take a right and you'll go into our establishment. And if you go straight, you'll open the door to the condominiums.
Okay, all right. I get it now. All right, thank you.
Yeah. Of course.
Commissioner Smith, do you have any questions?
Thanks, Jasmine. Hi, gentlemen. So a couple of things. So I'm thinking about the density as it applies to cannabis and how these businesses are going to be successful. So there's like 3 proposed cannabis locations there. How are you differentiating your business from the others?
In terms of from a marketing standpoint, can you get more specific with that question?
So I'm thinking I think it is important for equity businesses to be there and be successful. But I'm also thinking in terms of competition, how are you different in terms of how you market, what you sell, how are you differentiating? Because if we agree and we put all these businesses along Columbus or wherever they go, then aren't we sort of defeating the purpose?
Yeah, so to answer your question, there's one operating medical facility that's on Albany Street right now. So from a different perspective there, we're offering recreational products, as that dispensary is medical front facing. And then the other proposal that was recently approved was essentially, I wouldn't say on the opposite end of the South End, but they're closer to the Back Bay portion of the South End. And we're actually closer to the Mass Ave and more centrally located on Columbus Ave. So I would say we do have 2 market segmentations that are frankly different, seeing as though we are quote unquote half a mile from each other. Also, our need quote unquote for speed is our slogan. So what we mean by that is because we're going to use our proprietary technology to create efficient ordering processes for our consumers. I think that's one thing that's going to change our interest from a consumer standpoint. And then lastly, we are going to pair ZipRun, our delivery company, and pair that with our dispensary so that we're not only offering just recreational in-store pickup services, but we're pairing our delivery service so that we furthermore mitigate traffic for people that are looking to come to our location. So it's more like a speed thing for us. We're really a boutique dispensary. As you probably see in the plans, our dispensary is roughly 1,000 square feet, 1,100. So we're all about the speed and being that dispensary that can provide efficiency and support for those individuals that are trying to be in and out and that aren't looking for a long-standing relationship where they walk into the dispensary, speak with the bud tender, actually smell the product on site, and do all the due diligence. This is for individuals that are trying to be in and out and enjoy that experience that way.
And to add to that, I would say that we're also a dispensary that's going to partner with organizations that have the best interests of community members in the city of Boston that have been voiceless, such as I personally sent out a letter to the Louis D. Brown Institute of Peace organization, which is an organization that advocates for helping families that have dealt with homicides from a mental aspect and a financial aspect. So there's a lot of communities and organizations that we have dealt with and we have worked with that are here to improve the city of Boston beyond just the cannabis industry. So by aligning with these type of organizations, we're ensuring that Sweet and Sour is a benefit to the city of Boston as a whole, especially the communities that have been disenfranchised and voiceless for generations in the city of Boston. And we're trying to change that narrative.
Thank you. So looking at your presentation, you talk about this 5-figure annual contribution.
Yes.
What organizations are you working with? How often are you doing that? What's the criteria for that?
So like I stated, we actually sent out a letter to the Louis D. Brown Peace Institute.
So only one organization?
So there's one organization. I've also spoke to another organization that's called the Black Hospitality Group. And with the ZipRun, we've worked with other organizations in the past, such as the Inner City Weightlifting and various others. It's just that I want to get the official letters that are stating that they do take donations from the cannabis industry. So those are about 3 I can say off the top of my head. And we're going to definitely do more and more so research to reach out to more organizations. I've personally reached out to 10 plus organizations, but during these times, it's been hard to get letters of that they accept cannabis donations back to us. So I have 3 on hand that we've gotten in the past.
So through ZipRun, have you done any of these contributions?
So ZipRun is actually going to launch, I believe so, hopefully towards the end of this year. So we haven't been able to start our business yet. We've built the technology. We've reached out to these organizations. So once we are in operations and generating revenue, we're then going to make those donations to those organizations.
So you're doing it for ZipRun and for Sweet and Sour. So
yes, but these are 2 separate business entities.
Mm-hmm.
But for both organizations, we're going to 100% give back to the people and the organizations that are here to uplift the city of Boston, because that is what we believe that the social equity platform and is here for, honestly, in the cannabis industry.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Any additional questions from the board members? Chairwoman Joyce?
Thanks, Jasmine. Gabe, do you plan on applying for delivery at this location?
No, so what we're going to do, we're going to use our technology over at ZipRun to supply deliveries for this location. So if you're familiar with the delivery operator license that we have, what we're going to do is we're going to take our technology platform and embed a menu on Sweet and Sour's website so that Sweet and Sour customers can go on their website, place a delivery order that will be delivered through ZipRun, but not from Sweet and Sour. I know that sounds a bit complicated, but essentially Sweet and Sour will not for delivery license. I think I have noise in the background. I don't know who that was. So Sweet and Sour will not be applying for a delivery license. What Sweet and Sour will be doing is we will be partnering with ZipRun, and ZipRun will be supplying the deliveries. So what Sweet and Sour is going to do is Sweet and Sour is going to embed a ZipRun delivery menu on its website. Sweet and Sour customers can go on the delivery embedded menu. If a Sweet and Sour customer elects for delivery over in-store pickup, they will place that order. That order will be backdated through the Zip Run backend system, and Zip Run will deliver that order to that desired customer.
Where's Zip Run getting the product from?
So Zip Run is a dispensary operator, is a delivery operator. So we buy product from wholesalers such as Berkshire Roots, Happy Valley,
Okay.
and we store it at our facility, and then we deliver it from our facility to consumers. So Sweet and Sour will not be touching the delivery component at all, where it's just strictly a standalone retailer.
So Zip Run has the warehousing delivery model where they can buy wholesale, store it at the Zip Run facility, and then do orders that way. So what you're saying, Gabe, is that no deliveries are going to Sweet and Sour to pick up the product and deliver it. It's all going to be from the Zip Run.
All in the back.
Exactly.
Okay.
And the reason why we decided to do this is because we heard the concerns from the community. Obviously, delivery from that location is not ideal. So Zip Run is obviously the perfect pairing to make sure we mitigate traffic further from the Sweet and Sour location, and then ultimately, make for a more efficient and less traffic congested area.
Kathleen, are you all set?
Jasmine.
Yeah, I'm just going to ask people to be respectful in the chat. I'm having a hard time following the testimony every time people are debating things in the chat. So thank you.
Commissioner Smith?
Yeah, I'm sorry. One thing I forgot to ask, just looking at your presentation, you talked about the Harriet Tubman House and there was a safe haven for folks. I guess just in reading over it again, how is a cannabis shop a safe haven? You said you want to recreate a safe haven?
Yes.
Yeah. Go ahead, Ellis.
The reason why we said that is because we're making sure that the business opportunities that we're giving at Zip Run will go to those that were most affected by marijuana prohibition and enforcement. So we're making sure that our dispensary shop, that the revenue goes out to donations to organizations that are going to support these communities. And we are going to also make sure that we hire individuals that come from these backgrounds, like we've done with the hiring process at Zip Run. The people that we've hired at Zip Run came from impoverished communities in the city of Boston, and we're making sure that we introduce them to the cannabis industry. And not only are we bringing them in, whether it be at a delivery associate level with Zip Run or a bud tender level at Sweet and Sour, we're going to make sure that there is room for growth within our cannabis, within our businesses. So we're not just bringing these people in, having them stay in one position for a long duration of time, which is a common issue that has been in the cannabis industry. We've done our job interviews that people feel stagnant in their growth. So we're going to make sure that we have room for growth for these individuals that come into our business. And we're also going to make sure that the revenue that is being generated from our businesses directly helps those communities and people.
So it's a safe haven in terms of
opportunity. And also financial assistance to these communities. I actually personally went to the Harriet Tubman House when I was in high school, where they would do like a lot of different situations where you would go out and do performing arts, or you would have organization groups, and for instance, and I was actually disheartened when it got destroyed. There was a lot of protests to it, but at the end of the day, they were able to successfully put luxury homes, which is fine. So that's why we chose this location, because we feel as if though that we need to make sure that the people who lost this opportunity within the Harriet Tubman House also have an opportunities that is for them and seen for them in the South End community.
And just to make a quick point on that, individuals that would often go to the Harriet Tubman House, because I went to the John D. O'Brien School not too far from the South End community, and often people my age at the time, and even others prior to the destruction of the facility, would go there for job opportunities. And I think from a safe haven perspective, we can provide job opportunities to increase, the economic impact for people of color in that neighborhood. And then, as Ella stated, I think it's really about giving back and supporting the people that look like us, so that they can advance in their lives and complete the excellence that they are looking for.
Thank you.
No problem.
Any additional questions from the commissioners? All set. All right, now we will move to public testimony, beginning with elected officials or the representatives.
Hi, good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the board. Kim Crucioli from the Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Services. Our office held in a butters meeting June 21st of 2022. Concerns over traffic, location, trash, loitering, and crime were mentioned. Our office received 100 letters of opposition reiterating those same concerns from Director Butters. We also received letters of opposition from both the Claremont Neighborhood Association and Rutland Square Neighborhood Association. However, we did receive 300 letters of support from community members. At this time, our office would like to defer to the board. Thank you.
Any other elected officials or their representatives that would like to speak? Seeing no one, we will move to those who signed up via the chat. Allison will go through those names as she sees listed.
Okay, the first person who has signed up to provide public testimony is Mr. David Evans. Mr. Evans, feel free to unmute yourself.
Thank you very much. Thank you to the commissioners, and thank you to Ellis and Gabe for your presentation. Thank you, Ms. Wynn. I am a unit owner at 563 Columbus, so it's part of the same condominium association for this particular applicant. I'm on the board of managers of the condominium association, and I'm just really surprised that they never reached out to the condominium association before signing an option for this space or at any time really thereafter. And the board does not think that this is an appropriate use for the space. We do not agree that it's appropriate. We don't agree that it's legal. And we've advised the owner of the unit to that effect, and his position is essentially he's indifferent to whether it proceeds. And the reason why we're opposed to it has nothing to do with cannabis, has nothing to do with Ellis or Gabe as people. It has everything to do with this particular space. And I just implore you to please, please, please visit the site if you have the time, because you really won't be able to appreciate what we're saying unless you go out there. But this place literally shares the stairway, shares the entranceway with the residential units. It's impossible to enter one facility and not bump into somebody who's trying to exit from the other facility. It's exactly 5 feet, the pad there. And they're talking about 250 or so people showing up every day. Their waiting area is tiny. It has 3 people. So you'll have people queued up down the stairs, security guards out there. You won't be able to get in and out of the building without literally running over somebody. So what you didn't hear anything about really in this presentation was the actual physical space and how they intend to overcome these obstacles. And that's because they can't. And they come back and say, well, this is the most commercialized block on Columbus. I don't know where that comes from, but it's absolutely not true. There's 66 units across the street. There's 9 units in the very building that they propose to inhabit. So I don't know where they got that notion that this was the least commercialized block. And the other thing I'd love for you to come out and see is this block has literally 5 parking spaces on the entire block. The intersection at Mass Ave and Columbus is probably the busiest in the entire range of Columbus. It's a nightmare already with cars backed all the way up from the light, parking on surrounding streets.
Mr. Evans, that is your 2 minutes to speak.
Okay, thank you very much for your time. I just wanted to conclude, this is not in my backyard thing. It's not on our front step. Thank you.
Thank you. Allison, sorry. I see Councilor Fernandez Anderson has joined us. I know she wanted to speak on this matter as well. Councilor.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much. I actually sent a letter already. I didn't raise my hand, but I really appreciate you including me. Thank you.
Okay. Great. Sorry, Allison, you can continue.
That's okay. I just wanted to remind folks that Vital Roots is deferred to the October hearing. So if you're signed up for testimony, I'm going to just skip by you because the presentation hasn't been heard by the board committees. The next person who signed up for Sweet and Sour is Stephen Fox. Mr. Fox, please unmute yourself and proceed.
Thank you to the members of the board, and thanks to Gabe and Ellis. I don't want to go over ground that has already been covered, but I do want to thank Gabe and Ellis for their engagement. We've had a very cordial set of conversations. I chair the Rutland Square Association. I also happen to chair the South End Forum, which is the umbrella organization for all the neighborhood associations of the South End. And so we really appreciate the engagement that we've received with these applicants. We do happen to have a basic disagreement, however, in terms of this specific location. We think that the attitude and the aptitude of this business and these business entrepreneurs is really the right positive combination that we are going to need to see cannabis businesses grow in the South End. And I think we're at a very different point in time than we were a year ago or 2 years ago. But what I'm hearing from neighbors is, why is it that we are seeing 3 cannabis businesses all on Columbus Avenue? Nothing on Tremont, nothing on Washington, nothing on Shawmut, and the one existing medicinal dispensary is at 591 Albany Street, which has been a spectacular success. It has worked well because that business worked carefully with the community, with neighborhood associations, and with neighbors to make it a viable location. This location is fraught with problems, both in terms of the access as well as the fact that this will be the 3rd cannabis business on Columbus Avenue, which is just not the right approach that we think works for the South End. I also want to close by just saying one thing about the Harriet Tubman House. The issue of the Tubman House was deeply controversial within the South End community, but United South End Settlements sold the building in order to continue to survive and provide services to children and adults within the South End community. They have moved 2 blocks away to another location within the South End and continue their services as a result of the sale of the building. So while it is controversial, it was done specifically to support the kinds of services that are needed for South Enders and Lower Roxbury residents. I'll close by simply saying that we really want to see this business survive, but we think that this is just not the right location. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Fox. The next person who has signed up to provide testimony is Ben Whitney. Mr. Whitney, please unmute yourself and proceed.
Hi, thank you, members of the board, Gabe and Ellis. I represent Main Sale Management, who took on the development of the 9 residential units above it, and also the board of managers of the condominium, and will also be a future homeowner in that particular property. And I don't want to continue on the same path, but just speaking to the location itself, as David pointed out, the vestibule space is very small. You can touch both doors while standing in between them. So having people queuing up and down the stairs for 250 people a day, you're going to have a security guard checking ID while people exiting and entering, as well as 12 or 6 residents, could be 12, 14 people coming and going at all hours of the day. Something to be said about the 329 proposal, they happily provided a traffic study, which the neighborhood had asked for several times, and it had been shrugged off as not a requirement. But in speaking to the respect and how they see themselves, I think that would have been just a show of faith to say, hey, this is the data and it works or it doesn't. We asked at almost every neighborhood meeting to provide that specifically, and it was just pushed on. Another thing to be said is we as a company have a lot of money invested in the property, and now have people looking to purchase in this property who no longer have interest or are waiting for the outcome of the board because they don't want to live or start families in a building with a cannabis dispensary on the ground floor. There is also something to be said with there only being one entrance, so you have people exiting and entering. The ability for wheelchair accessibility is not there. The width of the doorway is not sufficient, and you have 6 stairs leading to the sidewalk. That alone, I think, should be brought into question just due to the fact that the ZBA, I mean, they'll likely look at building code requirements and accessibility issues. So to provide a medicine of sorts and not being able to actually gain entrance to the space, I think that says something to just how this location simply does not work. If it was the adjacent dry cleaner that has a separate entrance, entirely separate from the rest of the condominium, it might be more suitable. But this particular location just being too small and all of the other issues, we just don't see any alignment in the condominium, nor do we wish to see this business move forward. That's all I have. Thank you.
Excuse me, would you mind if I could speak to Ben Whitney's, I guess, a statement in terms of our proposition? So David Evans exactly claimed we never spoke to those individuals that had owned the 9 condominiums. Ben Whitney, who just spoke, is the guy I spoke to in regards to this location. In addition to one of the statements he made, he said the community on several accounts asked for a traffic study. First and foremost, that's not true because Ben Whitney was not on all the meetings that we had. I had countless meetings with the community. So that's one. 2, he brought up the accessibility issue. So according to the Massachusetts Architectural Access Board, if the construction work being performed amounts to less than 30% of the full and fair cash value of the building by code, we are not required to upgrade the accessibility of the building. Additionally, we won't be changing the building since the previous tenant was a retail establishment. And just so we're clear, there were 2 retail establishments prior to us coming to this location. So if traffic was an issue now, why weren't these things addressed before? Because prior to us, there was a Harvard Eye and Ear company there that was selling lenses and contacts. And previous to that, there was a Ellis, can you remind me of the name of that previous retail business that was at this location as well?
It was actually called Adam's Gifting Shop, and I actually bought like some items from there. So basically there was like thousands and thousands of different SKUs and items that were sold in this shop, whether it be jewelry, whether it be handcrafted postcards, things of that nature, and glasses, etc. Because he was like an international designer, and there was always a lot of people in and out of this building. And also, like what he just stated, our building is built similar to Render Coffee, which is one of the most popularized boutique coffee shops in the city of Boston. They see upwards of 200 to 300 people a day. So these buildings are built to handle this kind of traffic. And like we also stated, we do have traffic mitigation processes that are in place, such as our order ahead platform, which is going to make sure that it's not a whole bunch of people bum rushing the dispensary at one time.
And then to quickly add to that point, I know I brought up reasons why accessibility is not needed on our end, but with that being said, because we don't have direct handicap access, on-site security will be instructed to notify management immediately upon the arrival of a handicapped customer, and management will take action to ensure that the parties that aren't able to enter the dispensary for any reason are prioritized. A member of management will come outside to speak with the customer to identify the consumer's needs. The customer would then present their valid ID, just as any other customer that would walk into our and the process of the transaction would then begin. Sweet and Sour provides cell phone customer service, going above and beyond services to prove that to the community. And then lastly, I think what was touched upon was our innate ability to not correctly service our building for the purpose of a cannabis dispensary. It is claimed that we're going to use the vestibule, which is connected to the stairway in between both doors as a security parameters. Well, technically under the CCC parameters, Cannabis Control Commission, that wouldn't even be allowed. So before speaking upon our business operations, I would appreciate if members of the community would not do so, because you're just providing false information. In fact, which BCB, as I have in prior moments, send them our exact floor plans. So when you go their way, enter our facility on the right-hand side, you'll clearly see, once you walk into the door, there will be the vestibule where customers get checked in. And once they're checked in, they'll be able to enter the dispensary ground floor. And then lastly, I think it's safe to mention that the security parameters that we put in place are key, making sure management of inflow and outflow of 250 people. And let's not also forget, everyone acts as though 250 people are going to walk into the door at any given moment. These would be 25 people per hour on average. And so there's 60 minutes within an hour. So obviously there's more than enough time for the inflow of traffic to move efficiently throughout the operation. And then lastly, sorry to belong my point, but Ben stated the fact that consumers are not willing to purchase a condominium because of potential dispensary proposal. And I'll send facts on this, but based on cannabis dispensaries being open in the Colorado market, they have found that the value of cannabis dispensaries within communities have driven the value in residential buildings within the neighborhood. Long story short, cannabis properties have increased the value of residential properties in the community in Colorado. And that's information that I can send over to the BCB if need be.
Thank you, Gabe. We have one more person that signed up online to provide public testimony. That is Mario Nicosia.
Okay. Here I am. I'll wear two hats. I was the originally developer back in the 70s of this space. And this space actually was combined with the space next door. It was a much larger space. There's a very, very famous lady who had a beauty parlor there. And I cannot remember her name. She was actually internationally famous. And then later, at a later date, the space got subdivided into a larger space and a smaller space. Originally, that was actually a means of egress. That was not meant to be a main entrance to that space. And I'm elderly, I'm 74 years old. Occasionally I have hip problems. And I think we're missing the spirit of this thing. Like, we're kind of dismissing handicapped people. In fact, this is actually covered by federal regulations. And a lot of these changes that happened in the building were prior to the handicap laws. Remember Bob Dole and created all these handicap laws. And in fact, this handicap issue is not really being properly addressed. We're like discounting handicapped people, me being on the doorstep of being handicapped. And the space is impossible to be handicapped. And something that generates this kind of traffic should be handicapped. And there are, for example, the restaurant space is handicapped. Unfortunately, Renner's been there for many years. It's not handicapped, but you have much better accessibility to the doorway. This particular space, not only is it not handicapped going up the doorway, but it doesn't have enough room, and you have to have 18 inches on one side of the door, 12 inches on the other side of the door. And the door is kind of crammed into a vestibule. And so it's really hard to envision that you're going to generate that kind of traffic in a space that doesn't really accommodate handicapped people whatsoever. And the federal laws are as such that if you open up a retail establishment, you open up yourself to many, many federal lawsuits. In fact, and since this is a change of use, it really is required to be handicapped.
This is not a change of use establishment.
It is a change of use.
No, it's not.
That's why we're here, because it's a change of use.
Change of uses for the retail
If it
establishment.
was marijuana to marijuana, this is a change of use.
Okay, thank you, Mario.
Thank
Allison, are those all the people that signed up? Like, you're muted, sorry.
Sorry, Jasmine. That appears to be everybody who signed up on the online form.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. One more person just signed up this moment. Mike Reinders, if you would like to unmute yourself, you can proceed.
Thank you. I thought I was previously registered, so when I said I wasn't, I'm like, we signed up, so I appreciate that. A couple things that I want to clarify on points that were brought up. I've lived here 18 years on Wellington Street. I'm a neighbor. And there was talk about the eyeglass shop and the gift shop. I've been in both. Anytime I was in there, I was pretty much the only customer in there. They've only done, in my opinion, 2 to 3 customers an hour. So there's a substantial difference from 25 an hour. I totally agree on the queuing of space. I love cannabis. I think it's a great thing. It'd be great for the community. I totally agree with what's been being said that it's the wrong space for it. I can understand how there's 300 supporters of it, because if you came to me and asked me to sign a document saying, do I support a cannabis store in Columbus? I'd say yes. But I'm one that would ask more questions to find out, well, where is it? How does it work? What's the entrance? Who's going to be there? What support do you have of the neighbors and the other businesses, etc.? And so with that, I could understand the 300 signatures, and I can definitely understand the 100 opposition letters that of people that might have dug in and found out about parking, common entrance, queuing of the line. Because right now, Columbus Ave is extremely difficult. It is over dense. I agree, it's a big retail space, but as been pointing out, there's only 5 parking spots on that block. There are no parking spots across the street from it at all. It's not in the design. BPDA and Boston Public Transportation has made that strictly bike lane. So you only have 5 parking spots. Wellington Street gets used as already by the other retails that are there. There's double parking on Wellington, there's double parking on Columbus, creating an unsafe walking for all pedestrians that either live there or are visiting the businesses. The other thing that has been talked about is there's proprietary technology that will start the queuing. My question is that active, running? Has it been tested, or will that not be working when the business opens? The Zip Run business was talked about that it'd be up and running in July. It's still not up and running.
Hi,
And my
Mike,
question-
can you just focus on this proposal?
Yes, this is the proposal.
Yeah, but the
proposal-
technology is different from the location is what we're talking about, right?
Oh,
Yeah.
I understand that, but they're proposing that that location won't have the effect that it will because they have a delivery service. That delivery service is not up and running as of yet. They listed that it's a proprietary business, proprietary software that will limit the traffic of the 200 some customers per hour segmented. That technology hasn't been presented that it's up and running. So if that's not up and running, that is the business. So you cannot add those things in determining the location. So that's my 2 cents. I appreciate it. I hope they can find a better location because I'd love to have a cannabis store in the area that would work better for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Fabian has his hand raised.
Yes, thank you very much. I'm Fabian D'Souza from Wellington Street. I'm here instead of Bob Barney, the president of the CNA. I serve as the treasurer. He is unfortunately at a funeral of an elderly relative. I'm going to dispel with any thanks to the board because I would acknowledge that you know that I'm grateful. And really, I'm coming to this meeting with a completely different perspective. That as a member of a minority community who owns a business in the South End and has previously advised the applicants about some of the business concerns that I have seen with this project. So I would like the board to listen to it in that context. I think the very first thing I want to say is very often businesses make decisions based on information that they think is appropriate. The first thing that Gabe pointed out today was about mass zoning and what's allowed and what's not allowed, and this is a retail. Let me remind everyone that these rules were created way before cannabis operations were to come into our city. Those rules have not been revised and are definitely not to be considered in parallel with someone selling eyeglasses or trinkets of blown glass. It's a completely different business model. This is again advice to the applicants themselves. Please listen to me in that context. I think the second item there was right at the beginning of the presentation, there was a conversation about the South End being the fourth largest delivery market. There is, there is just basic discordance between a delivery market and a store that's actually interacting with customers. So if the delivery business is huge, well, tap into the delivery business. Avail yourselves of a space at a lower cost with many more square feet for that same price, so you can effectively run a warehousing business that delivers. The third thing that I wanted to point out were these abstruse comparisons between the Boston market versus that in Colorado. If anybody knows anything about life in Colorado, to get anything to anywhere, you normally have to go a few miles. It's not walking distance like it is here. So therefore, if you are used to consuming cannabis products, to have a proper store in your close vicinity presents a whole lot of advantages. And oh, by the way, Colorado has enormous parking sites for people to go out and park. So we cannot keep using apples to oranges comparisons to justify a business that has, I would dare say, fundamental flaws to its model. Another point that I want to make
Fabian,
is,
if you want
yes.
to just offer last minute, everyone has 2 minutes to speak. So if you just want to.
Thank you. The last thing that I want to say is that the applicant's relationship with the truth. We were told in June that the zip run was up and running. As of right now, it's not yet up and running. And he at that time said to us at the CNA board that they were already doing deliveries. Now, please don't stand up and say that I'm lying, because I know what I'm talking about, and there were at least 6 other people on the call with me. So if we can't start telling the truth about what's really happening and in what time frame, you are not going to get.
I think,
yeah.
Mr. D'Souza, I think we've heard enough. And I'm going to ask everyone else to be respectful of the time limit. It is 2 minutes for everyone to testify.
Thank you.
If you'd like to submit anything else in writing, we will read it.
May I quickly simply say that
no,
I want this business to succeed?
And we have a process here, and I'm asking everyone to be respectful of the process. So you can submit anything additional in writing, and we will read it.
Next person is Kay Scholler. Sorry if I mispronounced that.
It's Karen Poehler. Thank you. I have attended. I attended the June meeting and asked questions about the delivery because the commercial space is right in front of my house. We are a 3-generational family here. And I'm going to use that as an example of, I guess, why I have some lack of confidence in the transparency of some of the planning and what's being said. They said that they sat and did a study on it, and that space was empty 65% of the time, so that they would be available for deliveries. What they didn't say, and what I finally elicited from them under questioning, was that the day they did the study, and I know what day it was because there was a gentleman sitting on my front steps to do it for a brief period of time. It was done on a holiday Monday. A holiday Monday, of course, a lot of the South End people have gone out. There are no commercial vehicles parking there. If it's not a holiday, that space is full. So what it said to me was I needed to question what was said. I couldn't take what was said about various issues at face value. And that's all I want to say, and I apply that in my own head to some of the parking issues and the traffic issues that they say they have said. So thank you.
Hi, Jasmine. If you wouldn't mind, if I can quickly address.
Let me just see if there's anyone else that would like to speak, and then you can give your rebuttal. Is there anyone else that would like to speak in this matter that hasn't spoken? Derek?
Can y'all hear me? Hello?
Yep.
How y'all doing? My name is Derek Bona. I'm a minority investor owner of a low-key dispensary. So I've just a lot of experience with the vetting process of the board, and thank you all for the time. I just
Can
want
you
to
state your address, please?
What'd you say? I am 356 Lincoln Street, Apartment 5, Waltham, Massachusetts. I just want to speak on behalf of Gabe and Ellis, just on the character of these gentlemen. I've just met them, just for them entering the space with the delivery company. I just want to speak on the high character that they have. And again, just being with Low-Key and seeing the vetting process of how the board does things. They wouldn't allow things that wouldn't be able to happen. And I can speak on how Gabe and Ellis have done their vetting and their due diligence on, securing this location for their business. And I don't want the moment to be missed that these are minority owners trying to do something big for their families. And I just want to speak on their high character. And I know that everyone has their opposition and their opinions, but they've done their due diligence as business owners and throughout this process. So I just wanted to speak on the high character of these men. And I'm fully in support of what they're doing. So thank you all for the time.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Seeing no additional raised hands, Gabe, you can make it brief.
Please make it brief.
Sorry about that. So yeah, to address Karen's concerns, she is correct. We had plans of using a pickup and drop off zone 250 feet away from our building. But in our presentation, we had presented another drop off and unloading zone, which is directly in front of our building. So that's why we have two different drop off, unloading and loading zones to ensure that we have ample opportunities to efficiently unload and unload products. And as far as someone sitting on your steps, if you have a picture of myself, Christian or Ellis sitting on your steps, please send proof to the BCB, because I would love to hear that. I wouldn't sit on someone else's property. As far as Zip Run being up and running, I also would like proof for that. Why would I lie about my own business is not up and running? That does not help me at any point. And then secondly, we raised $2.3 million for Zip Run specifically to help out with the technology purposes of it. This is technology that does work, that will work once Zip Run is up and operational. We actually did use this technology to help our dispensary partners, Berkshire Roots, Pure Oasis, the list goes on to help them with in-store pickups from the month of July 2021 to December 2021. Unfortunately, due to CCC regulations, it was determined that a technology company and a delivery company, it's only determined that we could use our technology services only for our deliveries. Unfortunately, we had to shut that down because it was gray area in the CCC regulations. So there's proof out there, and we have previous orders showing that our technology services do work, and I'm glad to send that. But I just wanted to, kindly reiterate those 2 points, because there's a lot of falsifying that is taking place, and that's all I have to say. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Gabe. Any follow-up questions from the board members? All set. All right, those are all the matters before our board today. Again, Vinyl Roots has been deferred to the October agenda. The board will keep public comment open until next Tuesday, September 20th at 5 p.m. You may send additional testimony to cannabisboard@boston.gov. Thank you all for joining today's hearing, and see you all next week at the vote.
Thank you.